Welcome back. If you have ever laid awake replaying a conversation, wondering what someone really meant, or felt your whole mood get wrecked by someone else's bad attitude, this video is for you. Today we're breaking down one of the biggest self-help phenomena of the decade, a book that took two simple words and turned them into a movement. The book is called The Let Them Theory, written by Mel Robbins, and by the end of this video, you are going to understand exactly why millions of people say these two words changed how they move through the world. Stick with me, because the third idea in this video is the one most people miss completely, and it might be the most useful one of all. Let's get into it. Mel Robbins spent most of her adult life believing something that, on the surface, sounds completely reasonable. She believed that if she just said the right thing, worked hard enough, and behaved the right way, she could manage how other people felt about her. She could keep her boss happy. She could keep her friends close. She could keep her family calm. It felt like responsibility. It felt like control. But what she eventually realized after years of exhaustion is that this belief was an illusion. You cannot make another adult think, feel, or do anything they do not already want to think, feel, or do. Every ounce of energy spent trying is energy stolen from your own life, and that realization is where the entire theory begins. It helps to understand where Robbins was coming from when she found this idea, because it was not a comfortable place. At one point in her life, she and her husband were roughly $800,000 in debt. His restaurant business was collapsing, and she was unemployed. She has described waking up nearly every morning during that period with a knot of anxiety in her stomach, wondering if this was simply what the rest of her life was going to look like. Her instinct, like most people in crisis, was to try to control everything around her, to manage every outcome, to fix every person and every problem at once. It did not work. It just left her more exhausted. It was only later, after building other tools to manage her own mind, that the let them idea clicked into place as the missing piece. The one that finally let her stop trying to control the uncontrollable and start putting that energy where it could actually do some good, inside her own choices. That backstory matters because it means this is not advice from someone who never struggled. It is a tool built by someone who spent years white-knuckling her way through trying to manage everyone and everything around her, burned out completely, and then found something simpler that actually worked. The idea is built on two phrases. The first is, let them. Anytime you feel yourself getting annoyed, hurt, or stressed by someone else's choices, words, or mood, you say to yourself, let them. Let them be late. Let them be in a bad mood. Let them make a decision you would not have made. Saying those two words is not about giving up or not caring. It is about recognizing a simple fact. Their behavior was never actually in your hands to begin with. The moment you stop pretending it was, something interesting happens in your body. The tension in your shoulders eases. Your mind stops spinning. You get quiet enough to actually think clearly again. But let them is only half of it, and this is the part people usually forget to mention. The second phrase is, let me. Once you release your grip on someone else's behavior, you turn that same energy back toward yourself. Let me decide how I respond. Let me choose what deserves my attention today. Let me protect my own time and peace. This is the part that turns the theory from a coping mechanism into an actual strategy for building a better life. Letting go of control over others is only useful if you immediately redirect that freed up energy into something that matters to you. Let's talk about why this works, because it is not just a feel-good slogan. It is backed by something psychologists have studied for decades, called locus of control. People with what is called an external locus of control tend to believe their happiness depends on other people and outside events. People with an internal locus of control believe their well-being depends primarily on their own choices and responses. Decades of research link an internal locus of control to lower stress, higher resilience, and greater life satisfaction. Let them is essentially a fast, repeatable way of shifting yourself from external to internal in the middle of a stressful moment, before the stress has time to take over your whole day. Here is a picture that makes it real. Imagine you are standing in a checkout line and the cashier is moving painfully slowly. Your jaw tightens, your foot starts tapping. You glance at your phone, then back at the register, willing this stranger to move faster through sheer irritation. Now imagine instead you quietly say to yourself, let them. Let them take their time. You cannot control their pace, but you can control whether you spend the next 4 minutes furious, or whether you use those same 4 minutes to breathe, think about your day, or simply exist without adding stress to your body that nobody asked for. Nothing about the external situation changed. What changed is where you chose to put your energy. This brings us to the second major idea in the book, and it might be the one that hits closest to home for a lot of people: the fear of what others think of you. Robbins points out that this fear is one of the most paralyzing forces in adult life. It shows up as the promotion you never asked for because you were scared of being told no, the business you never started because you imagined people laughing, the relationship you stayed in too long because leaving felt like admitting failure in front of an audience that, frankly, was barely paying attention in the first place. Here is the uncomfortable truth the book lays out plainly. People are going to have opinions about you, no matter what you do. If you play it safe, someone will judge you for playing it safe. If you take a bold risk, someone will judge you for that too. Since disapproval is unavoidable either way, the only real choice you have is whether you let that inevitable judgment control your decisions or not. Picture a common workplace scenario. You have an idea in a meeting, something a little unconventional, something that could genuinely improve how your team works. But you hesitate because you can already picture a coworker rolling their eyes or your manager raising an eyebrow. So you stay quiet. The meeting moves on, and 3 months later someone else suggests almost the exact same idea and gets praised for it. That entire outcome was shaped by a fear of a reaction that had not even happened yet. A reaction you imagined so vividly, it stopped you before anyone had the chance to actually judge you. Let them roll their eyes. Let them raise an eyebrow. Let them think whatever they are going to think. Your job was never to control the room's reaction. Your job was only ever to say the idea. The practical shift here is to actively give people permission in your own mind to think whatever they are going to think. Let them think you are too ambitious. Let them think you are making a mistake. Let them talk. The moment you stop trying to manage everyone's opinion of you, you get access to a version of yourself that can actually take the leap, start the project, or leave the situation that has been quietly draining you for years. Now, the third idea, the one I mentioned earlier, and honestly the most underrated part of this entire framework, it has to do with why other people act the way they do in the first place, especially the people closest to you. Robbins introduces something called frame of reference. Every person you know is filtering the world through their own history, their own fears, their own generation, their own version of what safety and success look like. When your parent questions a decision you are excited about, it is rarely really about you. It is about the world they came from, the risks they survived, and the version of security they were taught to protect. When you understand someone's frame of reference, you do not have to agree with them, and you definitely do not have to change yourself to match their comfort level. But you can stop taking their reaction personally, because you finally understood it was never entirely about you to begin with. This idea gets even more useful when you apply it to conflict. Robbins makes a blunt observation in the book that a huge number of adults still react emotionally the way an 8-year-old would. Silent treatment, slamming a door, passive-aggressive comments instead of an honest conversation. Not because they are bad people, but because most of us were never actually taught how to sit with a difficult emotion and communicate it calmly. Once you see an emotional outburst for what it usually is, an underdeveloped skill rather than a personal attack, it becomes much easier to hold a boundary without losing your compassion, and to stay calm without needing to fix the other person's mood for them. Let's move to the fourth lesson, because this one changes how people think about supporting the ones they love, and it is a hard pill for a lot of caring people to swallow. Robbins argues that constantly rescuing someone from the consequences of their own choices does not actually help them. It often keeps them stuck. If you always cover for a friend who is chronically irresponsible, cover the bill for a family member who refuses to budget, or smooth things over every single time someone in your life creates a mess, you are quietly removing the exact discomfort that could eventually motivate them to change. This is not an argument for coldness. You can absolutely stay present, stay loving, and stay in someone's corner while still letting them experience the natural result of their own decisions. In fact, the book suggests that is the more respectful form of love, because it treats the other person as capable of handling their own life, instead of treating them like they need to be managed. Consider a parent watching their adult child struggle to hold down a job because they keep showing up late. Every instinct says to call the child's boss, to make an excuse, to smooth it over so the paycheck keeps coming. It comes from love, genuinely. But every time that rescue happens, the natural lesson, the one that would come from actually facing a manager's disappointment or a lost job, gets quietly erased. Let them face the consequence of their own lateness. Let me offer support in the form of encouragement and a listening ear, not in the form of covering up a pattern that only they can change. That is a much harder kind of love to practice than simply fixing things, but according to the book, it is the kind that actually respects the other person enough to let them grow. The fifth idea in the book focuses on adult friendships, something almost nobody warns you gets harder with age. As kids, friendship happens almost automatically. You are in the same classroom, the same neighborhood, the same activities day after day for years. As an adult, that structure disappears, and suddenly friendship requires actual intention. Robbins breaks this down into 3 practical factors: closeness, meaning how much unplanned time you actually share; timing, meaning whether your life stages line up; and coordination, meaning whether both people are consistently putting in effort. When a friendship fades, it is rarely some dramatic betrayal. More often, one or more of these 3 factors simply changed. Careers shifted, someone moved, someone had kids, and someone else did not. Applying "let them here" means releasing the guilt and grief of trying to force a friendship back into a shape it no longer fits, and instead putting your energy into the relationships that still have all 3 factors working in your favor right now. Think about a friend group from your 20s. Back then, you saw each other constantly. No real planning required. You just showed up at the same places. Fast forward a decade, and one friend has 2 kids and a bedtime routine to protect. Another moved across the country for work, and you are the only one still living in the same city you all started in. Nobody did anything wrong. Nobody betrayed anyone. Closeness dropped because the shared physical space disappeared. Timing shifted because your lives are no longer running on the same schedule, and coordination got harder because everyone is now juggling more. Trying to force that friendship back to exactly what it was in your 20s usually just creates disappointment on both sides. Letting it become whatever it can honestly be now, an occasional video call, a yearly trip, a warm text on a birthday, is not giving up on the friendship. It is respecting what it actually is at this stage of life, instead of grieving what it no longer is. So, how do you actually start using any of this today, in real life, not just in theory? Robbins offers a wonderfully simple test that ties back to her earlier work, something called the 5-second rule. The moment you feel that flash of irritation, or that urge to control someone else's choice, or that spiral of worrying what someone thinks of you, you count backward. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And in that count, you make your move. You say, "Let them," out loud or in your head. Then you immediately follow it with, "Let me," and you finish the sentence with whatever action is actually yours to take. Let them be upset. Let me stay calm and explain my decision once, clearly, and then let it go. The 5-second window matters because it interrupts the automatic spiral before your brain has time to talk you out of the healthier response. It is worth being honest about something too. This is not a complicated system, and Robbins herself has said as much. The power here is not in complexity, it is in repetition. Saying "let them" once will not rewire how you move through the world. Saying it every single day, in traffic, in arguments, in group chats, in family dinners, in every moment someone else's behavior tries to hijack your peace, is what eventually makes it automatic. Small, repeated shifts in perspective compound over time, the same way small habits compound into massive results in other areas of life. This is not a one-time fix. It is a daily practice, and like any practice, it gets easier and more natural the more you use it. Let's bring this all together. The core message of the "let them" theory is disarmingly simple, and that simplicity is exactly why it spreads so fast. You do not control other people's choices, opinions, moods, or timing, and trying to control them is where most of your stress quietly comes from. The moment you say "let them," you set that burden down. The moment you follow it with "let me," you pick your own life back up. Add to that an understanding of other people's frame of reference, a willingness to let people face their own consequences instead of constantly rescuing them, and an honest look at which relationships still have real closeness, timing, and coordination. And you have a genuinely useful toolkit for reducing stress and reclaiming your energy, not someday, but starting with the very next moment someone or something tries to steal your peace. If there is one thing to take from this video and actually use today, let it be this. The next time you feel that tightness in your chest because of something completely outside your control, pause, count backward from 5, and quietly say, "Let them." Then ask yourself the more important question. What do I want to let myself do next? That is where your power has been the entire time. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. It genuinely means a lot. If this video gave you even one idea you can use today, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button, because we break down a new life-changing book just like this one every single week, and you will not want to miss the next one. Drop a comment and let me know which idea in this video hit you the hardest.
I read every single one. Thank you again for spending this time with me, and I will see you in the next video.